The first thing I felt was the sting of cold metal on my wrist before I even opened my eyes. Then came the voice, smooth, low, and chillingly calm. "You're mine now." If that doesn't sound like a bad joke, I don't know what does. Except it wasn't a joke. It was the beginning of my new Realisha reality, signed, sealed, and delivered by the person I trusted most in this world. My best friend. I used to believe loyalty was unbreakable, something time couldn't erode. Turns out, all it took was one desperate night, a whispered deal, and a wire transfer with too many zeros. And me? I was the product. The Manhattan skyline glittered outside the tinted windows as the black SUV sliced through traffic. My wrists were bound in expensive leather cuffs, soft enough not to bruise but firm enough to remind me of what I'd lost: freedom, dignity, everything. I stared at my reflection in the glass. Blue eyes dulled with shock, lips cracked from crying, hair a mess of golden strands framing a face that used to smile too easily. Now, it was the face of someone sold. The man beside me didn't speak at first. He didn't need to. His presence swallowed the space like gravity itself, calm, commanding, and terrifyingly beautiful. Black hair perfectly styled, an angular jaw that could have been carved from marble, and eyes like storm clouds, dark, restless, dangerous. I knew who he was before he opened his mouth. Everyone in the city did. Adrian Hale, billionaire, real estate mogul, alpha, the kind of man whose signature could build skyscrapers or bury you 6 feet under without leaving a trace. "You're quiet," he said finally, voice smooth like aged whiskey. Smart choice. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. "What do you want from me?" He turned his head, and for a fleeting second, something flickered in those gray eyes: curiosity, maybe even amusement. Everything. The SUV pulled into an underground garage, the kind with polished concrete floors and cameras watching every move. My pulse spiked as the driver opened the door. Adrian stepped out first, tall and imposing, his tailored suit catching the dim light. When he extended his hand to me, it wasn't kindness. It was ownership. The first time our skin touched, a jolt shot through minute fear, not hate, something far worse. Something that burned under my ribs and curled low in my stomach. I pulled away like his touch had scalded me, but the smirk tugging at his lips said he noticed. Hell, he noticed everything. Inside his penthouse, I felt smaller than ever. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a living painting, the furniture all sleek lines and soft leather, the air faintly scented with cedarwood and something darker, something undeniably him. "You live here now," he said, shrugging off his coat, muscles rippling under his crisp white shirt. "Rules are simple. Do what I say when I say it, and we won't have a problem." My laugh was bitter, sharp. "You think you can just be me and expect me to play house?" He didn't flinch, didn't blink, just closed the distance between us with slow, deliberate steps until I could feel his breath ghosting against my skin. "I don't expect," he murmured, his lips curving into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I own." The words hit like a punch, but worse than the fury boiling in my veins was the way my body betrayed meth heat coiling low. The way his scent wrapped around me like a drug I didn't ask for but couldn't stop inhaling. God, I hated him. And God help me, I wasn't sure that hate would last. The first week was hell. Every inch of his penthouse screamed power, and I felt like a caged bird, fluttering against glass walls that never cracked. Adrian didn't push, not physically, didn't need to. His dominance was quiet, insidious, like ivy wrapping around stone. What broke me wasn't his threats. It was his kindness, rationed out in precise doses, like a poison meant to keep me weak. The way he left warm tea by my door when I couldn't eat. The way he never locked the bedroom door, as if daring me to run knowing I had nowhere to go. And then there was the night everything changed. I woke to the sound of rain drumming against the windows, the city lights bleeding like watercolors beyond the glass. I padded barefoot to the living room, only to find him there, standing by the window, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Shirt sleeves rolled up, tie discarded. The alpha looked almost human. Almost. "You should be sleeping," he said without turning. Couldn't, I muttered, hugging my arms. Too many nightmares. He glanced over his shoulder, and something in his expression softened barely, but enough to make my chest ache. He set the glass down and walked toward me, his steps slow, unthreatening, yet every nerve in my body screamed with awareness. "What kind?" he asked, voice low. "The kind where your best friend sells you." I shot back, bitter. For a long beat, silence stretched between us, broken only by the hum of rain. Then, to my surprise, he said, "I know what betrayal feels like." That made me laugh, harsh and humorless. Right? Because being a billionaire alpha must be so tragic. His jaw tightened, and for the first time I saw cracks in his armor. "Money doesn't buy loyalty. Trust me, I've tried." Before I could reply, his hand lifted slow, deliberate, brushing a strand of hair from my face. The touch was gentle, almost reverent, and it shattered something inside me. Weeks of anger, fear, longing, they all collapsed under the weight of that single gesture. "Why me?" I whispered. His gray eyes burned into mine. "Because the moment I saw you, I knew you were mine." And then he kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was fire and steel, a war waged between lips and teeth and tongues. I hated him for making me want this, hated myself for melting into his arms, for clutching his shirt like it was the only thing keeping me from drowning. That night, lines blurred. And once blurred, they never returned. 2 months later, I stared at the pregnancy test in my trembling hands, the 2 pink lines cutting through my soul like a blade. My knees buckled, hitting the cold marble floor. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. But it was. Adrian found me hours later, curled up by the bed, eyes swollen from crying. When he knelt before me, his face was unreadable. "You're carrying my child," he said softly, like a man stating the weather. I expected anger, disappointment. Instead, he cupped my face and pressed his forehead to mine. "You're not alone in this." Something inside me cracked wide open. For the first time, I believed him. The day I went into labor, the city was drowning in a summer storm. I remember clutching his hand so hard my nails drew blood. But he didn't flinch. He stayed. Through the screaming, the chaos, the fear stayed. And when the nurse placed the tiny, wailing bundle in my arms, I broke. Completely. "A boy. Ours." Adrian kissed my temple, his voice breaking for the first time. "You gave me a family. You gave me everything." I looked at him through tears, searching for the monster I thought I knew. But he wasn't there. In his place stood a man flawed, scarred, but mine. Months later, I sat on the rooftop garden, our son asleep in my arms. The city stretched below us, endless and alive. Adrian came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders, resting his chin on my head. "Remember the first night you were here?" he murmured. "How could I forget?" I teased, leaning back into his warmth. "You told me you owned me." He chuckled, low and rough. "I was wrong." "Oh." His lips brushed my ear, sending shivers down my spine. "You own me." And in that moment, with the skyline glowing like a sea of stars and his heartbeat steady against my back, I realized something. Betrayal had brought me here. But love, raw, messy, terrifying love, was what kept me. Forever. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.